was going to quickly go through a demo of the SRA system and kind of go over what it actually looks like, how it actually works. I know Mikhail already went through all of the, kind of the use cases and some of the high level information, but I wanted to show you what the system actually looks like. So hopefully you guys can all see my screen. I'm actually going to have two systems running. So I'm going to have an admin session here, and then I will have a secondary user session here, so I can kind of walk through the whole use case here. So let me see chat going. Let me make sure. Okay, that was doing well. So so I'm going to go through a whole session here to show you guys what it looks like when a user is logging in, how they actually administer the system, all that sort of stuff. So if you remember what Mikhail was saying, there is typically going to be at least two servers. You're going to have your central server where your users are logging in through a web interface to get to remote assets, and then the actual site component that is creating the remote sessions down to whatever you're remoting to. So whether it's an engineering workstation, an HMI, basically anything that is, that we want to get into at the OT site, that's the thing that's getting to it. So when users come in, if I'm logging in as an administrator, this is the screen you're going to see. And if you'll notice, everything I'm doing is through a web interface. That's how all the users interface with the system. It's all done through a web GUI. And this allows us to get in and be able to get down and see the assets that are connected. So down at this site level, you can see I've defined a couple of different servers here. I've defined some that are Windows. I'm coming in through RDP. I have a web interface here where I'm just going straight to another web landing page. And I could do SSH, VNC, a number of different things. So all of these servers that I can remote into are defined here. This is where I would set up access controls if I want to limit who has access to what. That is all defined here. So if I want certain users to only get access to certain assets within the environment or only be able to see certain sites within the environment, this is kind of that first level of control that it gives us, because it allows us to limit who can actually see what. If you're using just a jump server or an open VPN connection to a site, basically once you get into everything. So that's one of the big benefits of our system, is you can set up very restrictive role-based access control to control who can actually get access to what and how they get access to it. So now let's actually look at my user. So here I have my user David coming in. The first thing you'll notice is I don't see 4 assets. So I had 4 assets defined in the central. I've only given this guy access to 3, so I can't even see that the other ones exist. So, this is a pretty small example, but if you expand this out to an entire site or a fleet of sites, you can kind of see how this can be leveraged. It can be used very powerfully to say, okay, if I have Siemens and Schneider and Rockwell that are all third parties remoting into my site, I'm only going to give Siemens access to the Siemens stuff. I'm only going to give Schneider access to the Schneider stuff, and so on and so forth. So you can really limit who gets access to what. The other thing you'll note here is I have different ways of connecting. So to this engineering workstation, I have to go and request access. So I've set it up where if this user's coming in to this engineering workstation, I've decided I don't want to just give them free access. I want to make them go through a secondary approval process so my administrators know that they're coming in and then can approve that, yes, this guy needs to come on, there's a valid need for this sort of thing, and you can change that sort of behavior. Just like how on this guy, if they're coming into the Splunk server here, I just let them connect. So you can set up rules for different assets for how users actually get in. So if I want to make them go through an approval process, if I want to say, okay, you can just get in whenever you want, maybe you want your internal engineers, your local site engineers to be able to remote in, no problem. But you want to make your external third-party vendors go through an approval process, you can set all that sort of stuff up. The question was per user or per asset. This is all role-based. So this is, you create a group of users and then you define their rights per asset. So if I had a group of, again, like Siemens, Schneider, and Rockwell users, I would set up for my Siemens users, this is how it behaves on this specific asset. This is how it behaves on this specific asset. So you can do that on a per asset or per site basis to a group of users. The other thing you're going to notice here is that when I actually log in, you can define how credentials are passed. So McCall was talking before about how we have password vaulting capabilities. You can change how the users have to actually authenticate with these endpoint assets. So like here, I have a couple different options to connect. One of which is going to allow me to connect directly. It's going to have credentials already preloaded into the machine. We set that up when we define the machine on this side, so the user doesn't even need to know the credentials on the machine they're logging into. All of the access control is controlled by our system. So, assuming they get assigned rights through the Claroty SRA system, that is what gives them rights on the machines down below. The big benefit of this is that you no longer have that situation where everybody has the passwords to all of your devices on your actual OT network. And then if, Joe Schmo from your partner leaves down the line, you don't have to go change the passwords to everything. So that is a big benefit we see from a lot of our customers. So let's actually go through the login process here and kind of see what this looks like. So I'm going to go through the one where I need additional level of control. And I have another quick question here. Question is, per asset, do you mean can I download to a certain PLC while I can't upload from another? So you're not connecting directly to PLCs. If you remember, the way that we're connecting in is through like an engineering station or something like that. So by per asset, I mean I'm setting up, I've defined different RDP connections here. Each one of these is a unique Windows machine. So I would say this group of users can only connect to this from 9 to 5, or they have to require an additional authentication after the fact, or they need additional approval after the fact, or something like that. So you define it on a per machine basis. And it has to be something that we can remote it to. So you can't actually remote directly into a PLC. If you're using our VPN clients, that is on a per asset basis. So I'll talk a little bit about that, but from the application VPN, that would be on a per PLC basis. But if we're going in through the higher level here, it's going to be on a per asset. So the question is, do they have to be global IPs or can they be to local NATed devices? They can be to local NATed devices because if you remember, the thing that's actually creating this RDP connection is local to these machines. So I'm not connecting from this central. There's actually a physical presence on that site that is creating these local sessions, and that has to have some routable link to that site. So you're generally not going through a NATed address. You're generally going directly to the machine locally, and then that gets passed up through the SSH tunnel to the central, and then this is that interface through here. And yes, IPs can overlap because if I have numerous sites defined, you can have identical IPs at different sites. Then it would be here, I show this as site central. I would have numerous site names and different IPs. So I would have site 1 with IP and then site 2 with different IPs and stuff like that. So the question is, if I have connection to an asset, what's the interface to your remote PC? Every user is coming in through the web interface. So users only ever come in through HTTPS. Let's actually go through this. I'm going to pause questions for a second and I'll address them in a second. But let's go through what this actually looks like because I think it'll give you a better idea. So if a user's coming in and they're actually requesting access, let's go through this. So I have a user coming in remotely. I'm trying to get to an asset, and let's say, I wanted to make this have an additional layer of authentication here. So I'm going to say this guy needs to come in and request access. So there's 2 different ways that I can do it. First is for an expected duration. That's where I say I need access right now. I need it for X number of hours, and here's the reason why. So this first one I'm doing is for just a broke fix. So, something broke in the middle of the night, I need to come in to help, and I need access to this machine right now. The other way you can do it is schedule a session. So if you have a remote user that knows that, on the 3rd Friday of every month, I do maintenance on all these machines, you could schedule a session in the future and get approval before that time. And then once it becomes that time, you just immediately get access for that window. But let's go ahead and go through this broke fix example. So the example we're talking about, something broke in the plant, I'm coming in, I need to help fix, and we need to see what that looks like. So now on my admin side, you can see I see this as a pending request. So now I see that David is trying to come into site 1. He's trying to come into this engineering station. He wants an hour of work on that thing. And the reason he's coming in is for a broke fix. And here I can approve or deny. So again, we can set this up on a machine basis so I can decide who has to go through this additional approval layer and who doesn't. But in this case, I know something's down in the plant. I called this guy and asked him to come help. So I'm going to go ahead and approve this because I know that this guy needs to come and start working on this thing. So my admin's gone ahead and approved it. And now you can see it's out of here. And if I go over to my user side, now you can see I have an approved connection and I can actually connect directly to this machine. So again, everything's coming through this web interface. So my user doesn't actually connect directly to this machine. I always liken it to if I gave you keyboard and mouse control for my Zoom session right now, you would have a window into my computer that I'm on, but you wouldn't actually be on it. So it's very similar to this. So I have a window into this server and I can come in here and I can click around, I can run stuff. This is an engineering station. So I had, some Schneider engineering software. I can come in, push stuff to a PLC. I can do whatever I need to do. But I am a layer removed. I'm not actually on this machine. I'm not actually on this PLC. I'm coming in through the SRA system. So I didn't open up a tunnel directly to this machine. The local site component created an RDP session and then serves it up to the user here. So everything is being controlled by the SRA system. So my user is not actually on this. My user connectivity is all through HTTPS to the central server, and then SRA is handling everything on the back end. So now I got a bunch of questions, so let's look at these for a second. Does the system notify admin via mail or only in the portal? You can have it send you through a mail server or SMS, which can be done through a mail server that approvals and stuff are needed. Do we have an approved session menu as admin, or does RSA connect to the remote users? So you do have approved sessions. You can see active sessions. So like here is my administrator. I can actually see that this session is currently going. Is the web interface capable of two-factor authentication? Yes, it is. And is certificate-based authentication of the target system SSH? So we do have SSH as a option here. I believe right now we support RDP, VNC, SSH, and HTTPS for our remote connectivity at this layer. That is expanding, but yes, we can do SSH sessions down directly. So again, I'm in here, I remoted in, and again, it's that layer removed. So I'm just coming in through that web interface. I'm doing my work. My admin is really concerned, the plant's down. I want this guy to be working really fast. So one of the big benefits here is because this is all being controlled by our server, my admin can actually watch what's going on in real time because I can serve this same session up to numerous users. So if David's coming in here and I'm moving stuff, I'm changing stuff, I can see in real time actually what this user is doing. So we call this our over-the-shoulder view, but it lets you watch in real time what your remote users are doing. The other thing this lets you do is it lets me communicate to him. So, plant's down. I really want this guy to be working faster. I need him to be coming in and doing this stuff and fixing this because we need our plant back up. So now my David user can see that. He's trying. He's really going for it. I'm trying to get it up and running, but I just can't figure it out. So this allows us to have a back and forth. It allows me to watch in real time what this user is doing. And it also allows me to just, if I want to know what they're doing or if I'm concerned they're not doing the thing that I think that they are, it gives me the ability to watch all that in real time. The other big benefit this gives us is the admin has complete control over this session. So at any time, if I decide, I'm not happy with what this guy is doing, or we have our disconnect all sessions button. So if you have a plant transients that, we want to just kill all remote sessions, we want to make sure no one coming in remotely is giving us any issues, I can kill all my sessions, but I can kick this guy out at any time that I want, and he has no control over that because he's not actually the one holding it open. The SRA server is the one holding it open. So this guy wasn't working fast enough. I need someone else. You know, I need a better engineer on this thing. And so David is out of there. So I kick him out. Admin can control that. I can kill that session. And now David is out. You know, again, because I'm not actually the one holding open this session, I can't get a little backdoor or anything like that. It's done. It's over. And now I'm out of this thing. And now if I want to come back in because I had my ticket revoked by an administrator, I would have to come in and go through the entire approval process again to get access to this a second time. So question is, currently the admin can be interact to be able to type the admin, type the password on the shared screen. Yes, currently we don't allow the admin to also send things. So you can watch, but you can't interact with from that admin session. That is feedback that we've gotten before. So I think that that's something that we're working on. Sessions can also be disconnected automatically. So your user can kill sessions, your admin can kill sessions. You know, anyone with admin privileges can come in and kill active remote sessions. And again, the idea there is that you want them to be able to control who's in and when they're in. So that's kind of what the real-time piece looks like when I'm actually on the system. Now let's look at what the auditing piece looks like after the fact. So these are two of the main big use cases. It gives you the ability to control from a very granular level who gets access to what and how they get access to it. So it gives you the approval on the front end. During the session, it gives you the ability to monitor what they're doing. So it gives you the auditing during the session. And then after the session, it gives you a huge amount of ability to audit what users have done after the fact. So here you can see I now have in my sessions, I can see that this user came in, generated the session. I can see how long it was, when it happened, who was the user, what server were they on, all this sort of stuff. But the big thing this allows me to do now is actually watch a live video of what that user did. So say I had this set up where this guy could come in anytime he wanted, and last night at midnight, the plant shut down, and I want to know what happened. Well, in the past, I've actually had this happen at real plants. You know, remote user says, oh, it wasn't me. I wasn't even on the system. I wasn't doing anything. Well, now we can see, were they actually on it? You know, who was remoted in during the time that the plant shut down? And say we have David from this partner coming in and they were on the system at this time. Well, I can actually come in here and cut to, you know, midnight and see, oh, at 11:59, they pushed a config down to this PLC, and 1 minute later that PLC tripped and the plant shut down. So you can actually see what they were doing, what was happening, and it gives you a huge ability to audit this stuff after the fact. So let's look at questions. If I approve anyone, how can I take back, even if he never connects? What is the recorded duration? So if you approve someone for a one-time ticket and they never connect, it does time out after a certain time period. So it doesn't stay open forever. So generally, if you're doing that immediate approval, it's because you know they're coming in. You know, it's because of a plant transient. It's because you're responding to something, so you would know that they're coming. But it will eventually time out. And then another question, I would like to allow a local admin in the plant to only be able to give access to specific IP ranges to ensure that it does not give access to another plant's PLC, for example. I don't believe we have the ability to do that from an administrative level, but again, not every user. We would generally do that from a user level, because in general, you would have, you know, if I want to limit who has access to what PLCs, I would do that from the access control piece. So I would say these users can only see these PLCs or these engineering workstations or whatever. You know, that is where you generally control that, because then I don't even have to worry about them asking for approval for that stuff, because they can't even see that it exists. So that's normally where we're controlling that stuff, is on the front end instead of on the back end. And remember, you don't have to go through this approval process for everybody. It is, you know, we set up who needs to go through additional layers of approval. It's all done through our access control.